All right, hey everybody. This is Brandon Ray with Louisville GRIND. This is our third episode, and this we are featuring this week Tyler Chesser.
Hello, everybody. Yes, sir. Tyler Chesser. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming out. We just wanted to, get you out, and we understand that you're part of the commercial real estate and want to, get to know more about that and kind of what you're into. So we'll just ask a few questions here and kind of get everything going. So the first one we'll start off is, what is your business? What do you do exactly?
Sure. So I'm actually, I would consider myself somewhat of a dynamic professional in a lot of different ways, and I think it's actually one of the more beautiful things that's happening in our economy and in the world right now is that a lot of business is changing and it's not necessarily as cookie cutter as it was before. And so the way that I would describe my business is really kind of threefold. One of which obviously is commercial real estate brokerage. So I do investment sales on income producing real estate assets in Louisville, primarily in this city, but it's Kentucky as well as Indiana. I work with investors all over the country as well as locally on the sale and purchase of income producing real estate. So whether that's multifamily assets, whether that's retail assets, office, industrial, mixed use, or even raw land. I work on the sale of those properties as well as the acquisition, so advising, counseling, and really kind of being a quarterback for my clients in those purchases. Also, am an investor myself as well in income producing real estate, and so I fully believe in my product. So it's like, in my opinion, if you're a broker in the commercial real estate space and you're not investing, I think you're missing out on a big opportunity there, because not only if you fully do believe in your product, in my opinion, it's like put your money where your mouth is. And so since I do believe in the long-term, value of investing in real estate, that is another big piece of my business. The other piece of my business that is currently experiencing a lot of growth is personal development. And, I've been extremely passionate about personal development. It's really changed my life in a lot of ways in terms of, my business growth. And, so I'm offering, more services along those lines. I've actually got a couple of programs that are in the development phase right now, and actually looking to expand that. I'm actually in the beginning stages of a book, looking to, add along my speaking engagements and such. So there's a lot of different dynamic pieces of my business, but that's really how I would describe it.
That's awesome, man. Sounds like you got your hands tied in a lot of different ways, but never a bad thing. So, well, talk me through this. How'd you get started in commercial real estate?
So I got my career started actually, about 10 years ago when I graduated college, and I actually started in a different industry. When I started my career, I began it in international marketing for a Fortune 500 firm. And what we were doing is we were opening locations in the Middle East as well as Asia and South America and Eastern Europe. And so it was a great experience for me to be able to learn how to diplomatically manage business and partnerships and evaluate different cultures and what type of psychological decisions consumers are making in those different markets and how that impacts everything. So it was a great way for me to get started in my career, my professional life. And after about 4.5 years, I came to the realization that it was fulfilling in a lot of ways, and it was also limiting in other ways in terms of my time, in terms of my, controlled results, whether it would be financially or otherwise. And so I started to explore different ways to, put my talents to work. And so, long story short, I started to try to find out what else could I do where I could, my results were really tied directly to my effort and to my effectiveness. And so long term, I looked at commercial real estate brokerage as something that I had talents and skills that maybe overlapped. And so I pretty much interviewed every broker or, investor that I could get my hands on, and try to find out if this is a space that I would be interested in. And, it turned out to be a space that really suited me. And actually, it was kind of interesting because I didn't have any family in the real estate business. I didn't really have any direct experience with it. I didn't really know anything about commercial real estate investment, other than the fact that I had skills to be, a salesperson. I was numbers oriented. I was always good at math growing up, and it was something that I was passionate about. I enjoyed that. And so that's kind of briefly how I jumped into the business. And so, the beginning times were certainly very much an uphill battle in terms of building my business, building credibility in a space where, the average age is nearly 60 years old. Coming into the space as I think I was 20, maybe 24, 23 or 24 at the time. And so, obviously, you're talking about sizable deals that people are saying, well, can you actually handle this? Do you know what you're doing? And so lucky enough, I was able to kind of build relationships where I was able to, gain trust. And if I didn't know the answer to something, I would, do my best to find out and just be transparent the fact that I didn't know that answer or whatever it was. And so I just kind of scratched and clawed my way through those first 2 or 3 years. And so now it's been actually 6 years in the business, and it's been an amazing transformation, personally, because some of those times have been very challenging, and so it's required me to dig very deep within myself, and work extremely hard and work smart. And so, anyway, I know that's a really long-winded answer, but that's how I got started.
Awesome, man. Well, I know we talked a little bit beforehand. You've been in the industry for 2 years, so
6 years.
6 years.
Yep.
And then, okay. Well, over the past couple of years, I know you've had a couple hurdles and that kind of stuff. Do you mind just kind of touching on maybe a couple that you've experienced over the last couple of years and how you overcame them or what you would do differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things, and actually something that I've learned recently, is that, a lot of times we look at our struggles and we say, man, how unfortunate. And a lot of people will say, well, woe is me or whatever it is, and they feel very sorry for themselves. But I think you have to reframe it and say, look, this isn't actually an opportunity. Whatever struggle you're going through is like something where you can this is an opportunity for either universe or God or whatever, teaching you a lesson and teaching you how to become more resourceful, teaching you how to be, more effective or whatever it is. So I think you have to reframe challenges. And so, I mean, for me, I've had a huge amount of challenges. I mean, in the business, there's definitely been ups and downs. There's been huge roller coasters where, everything's going my way. And there's been other times where it's like everything is going not my way. And
so kind of looking back, let's say 5-10 years, what would you tell your younger self that you know now?
5 or 10 years. I mean, if I look back 5 or 10 years, I mean, like I'm entering my 30s now. Yep. And my 20s were a year of exploration and real transformation. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like, it's unbelievable the amount of, at least for me, the amount of changed identity that you go through in your 20s. Mm-hmm. When I graduated college, I remember I was in college, I was the president of my fraternity. And I remember being so busy and, working really hard on that. And I learned a lot in that process. And when I graduated, I was like, oh, I'm retired now. Yeah. Now all I have to do is like work, and like I don't have to do things at nighttime, and I can just relax and take a little bit of a step back. And I certainly did that for at least, the first little while. And after that, I mean, I think I learned that really to get places, you've got to put in more effort than really what's expected of you, unless you just want to live that average life. And so, like for me, it took me a little while to really fully comprehend that, but it was like once I started to figure out, like, I didn't just want to live that average life. I determined that, I needed to put in extra effort and to really develop myself, not only, work on my job, but also work on my own skills, my own, brain capacity, my own knowledge, my own, whether it's fitness, whether it was reading books, or whether it was learning about mindfulness. I mean, it was such a exploration process that really, it took like the entire decade to really metastasize, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, I think that just learning the fact that it's a continuous learning process is really the key. And because when I came out of college, I thought I knew everything. And it's so funny, it's because the people who think they know everything are the ones who probably know much less than they realize. And the ones who are, who have put in a lot of effort and work in transforming themselves are the ones who say, well, I probably don't know that much, and it's like more of a humility type of a situation. But yeah, I mean, I think that's been the process for me.
Gotcha. Awesome. So I can tell you're big into personal development, goal setting. And I think that's incredible. So I kind of want to ask you, it's brand new year, and everybody's got their New Year's resolutions. What are your top 1 or 2 goals for yourself personally this year?
My top 2 goals. So I'm very goal oriented, and I actually have on the background of my phone, I have all of my goals here, and I actually, not necessarily that I read them in depth like every time I look at my phone, but it reminds me of everything that I'm trying to do. And my top 2 goals, one of which is to acquire a 100-unit apartment complex this year with a partner, and we've been heavily seeking those deals, and we've actually made several offers recently. So that's the top one. The second one is to also acquire another piece of property with another potential partner, and then we've been looking at opportunities as well. So for me, it's like going back to the put your money where your mouth is, and I think the opportunities are all out there. You've just got to work to get them and to find them. So those are my top 2 goals. I have other ventures that I'm working on kind of getting off the ground right now as well, as it relates to personal development in real estate as well. So I mean, those are my focuses, but just also spending time with my loved ones and making memories, whether it's traveling. I mean, I just came back from Australia like 3 weeks ago. I was there for 2.5 weeks. So seeing the world, making sure that I'm working, but also enjoying at the same time. So those are my focuses.
There you go. Business with pleasure. I love it. So big question. That's kind of broad, but how would you define success?
I think I would define success as a continual process. It's not something that's totally set in stone. It's like, here's where you need to get. That's like, this is it. And then once you're there, you can lay in the shade. It's more of a continuous growth process. And like for me, actually, what I've learned over time has been that, the grind, like I think like you talk about like Louisville GRIND. I mean, the grind is really, that's the journey is the destination. And like for me, the continual just like embeddedness of seeking what it is that you'd like to become, to me, is success. And if you continue to strive, and if when you fall down you get back up and you try again, to me that's success. And obviously you've got to get smarter, you've got to get more effective, and if you keep making the same mistakes, obviously then there's a problem. But if you have the courage, I think, to continue through the face of fear, worry, adversity, stress, all these different things, in my opinion, you're successful. But I think it's different for everybody, but that would be my definition.
Awesome. I love it. So being an agent myself, we get this question a lot. Do you do commercial? Do you do residential? So why do you think you chose commercial over residential?
Yeah, I chose commercial over residential because for me, it's more of a concrete and objective purchase or sale. It's all based on the figures and risk analysis. So whatever your return on investment looks like, and based on the risk of that market as well as that specific asset, whether it's condition or occupancy or whatever. For me, it's a very concrete method, and there's not a whole lot of emotion involved in terms of what does this purchase value really look like. I mean, we can specifically say that we're looking at a cap rate of 5 to 7% for a specific asset, or we're looking at 6 to 8% for another asset, and so we can value properties very objectively. And the other thing too is like acquiring income producing assets, whether it's real estate, business, or otherwise, to me is a philosophy that I believe most should be open to, because it allows you to really build true wealth. And I don't know if a lot of your listeners have ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, but if you haven't, you should certainly go pick that up.
Definitely.
Because it's a total mind shift in terms of how to create wealth and how to create a life of your dreams and, freedom. And so for me, being able to advise folks who are building a life of their dreams and to be in that type of a situation, that's where I want to be, and that's why I got into the business.
Awesome. So, I know you're super busy, but being a, agent as well, you also have a lot of flexibility. So I know every week is different, but kind of if you could maybe run through what a typical week might look like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had somebody ask me this exact question a couple of days ago, and the way I answer this question is I try to control the controllables as much as possible, because there are so many variables at play, and like you said, every day is different, which is a good thing. And then also at times it can be kind of a lot to handle. So, I mean, for me, like, I'm an early riser, so I'm always up at, around 5 a.m. And when I get up, I'm doing my own work on myself to, sharpen my own skills, whether it's reading books, whether it's working out. I go to the gym every morning, meditation, as well as, prayer and gratitude and those kind of things. I mean, those things have really helped me set up each day for success. And so between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8:30, sometimes 9 or so, that's my time where I'm spending time on that, and also obviously nourishing my body, because this is the vehicle in which everything else happens. So I mean, that's my typical day in the morning. And usually after that, I mean, for me, my business is all about relationships. And so usually I have a meeting, first thing in the morning, whether it's coffee or otherwise, if it's in someone's office or what, typically I'll have a coffee meeting. From there, usually what I try to do is, shout out to Tim Ferriss is, one of the things that I love to do is batching. Like, there are certain tasks that I always have that are on my list, in different ways. And one of the things that we all try to manage in different ways, at least I do, is emails, and I always try to batch my emails, after my first meeting. Mm-hmm. So in between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., that's email time, whether it's, being proactive on certain projects that I'm working on, or responding to various projects that we're managing right now. Mm-hmm. And so I spend a lot of time doing that, but I want to make sure that I'm not constantly on email throughout the day. So, I batch those for about an hour at a time. From then, typically there will be other projects to be, put together proposals on, or maybe there's prospecting calls that I need to make, or perhaps other meetings. And, like right now, you and I met at 11 a.m. and this is not unusual for me. And, after that, there's a lot of times where I have lunch meetings. And so, there's a lot of meetings, but it's building one-on-one true relationships. Mm-hmm. So those 1 hour meetings spent for me are really time well spent, because it's all about, what can I do to add value to this person in the long run? It's, what can I do to build a long-term relationship with this person? Not just about how can I get a deal closed with them, more of, what can I do to be on their team or someone that they can trust for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Mm-hmm. And so that's always my approach there. And then in the afternoon, a lot of times I'll be in the office and I work from there. Typically until, around 6 or so is my typical day. But perhaps, a lot of times in the afternoon as well, there's property tours, whether it's a new opportunity, whether it's something to potentially invest in, or to sell for a client, or to acquire on behalf of another client. And so, typically you have that. And then in the evenings is, for me, is really time with family or friends. Or time to relax and maybe read or write. I enjoy writing as well. And so I mean, I try to control the controllables as much as possible. Every day is a little bit different, but that's typically how it's structured for me.
And I love how you add value to every transaction, or at least you do your best.
That's the goal. I mean, one thing I think that people have to be very vigilant about in the real estate business, whether it's residential or commercial, is that, if they want to stay relevant in terms of the changing times and the changing, how we have so much technology and so many different options that buyers and sellers have, whether they're in commercial or residential, you have to be focusing on how can I add value? Mm-hmm. I mean, period. And that's, for me, I think that's one of that is my top focus, is anything that I'm on. It's like, what am I doing to make sure that I'm adding value? I'm not just a middleman. I'm not just a filler. So I think that's really important. Everyone needs to ask themselves that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So, and that kind of led me into my next question. Dealing with clients all day, especially with our market now, some say we're in the bubble. Some say, it's a great market. So how do you deal with challenging markets?
Yeah, I think for me, I think the big key is to not get caught up in emotions because everyone, in my opinion, across the board, markets are moved by emotions, especially like stock markets and things like that. For the most part, people, when things go down, people get worried and they say, "Oh my gosh, I got to sell before it goes too far down." And so I think equanimity is one thing that I've talked about a lot, is very important to make sure that you're even keeled and to make sure that you are focused on the long term, because no matter if the market's going up or if it's going down, everything is tied together. Like the reason why I mentioned stock market is because it ultimately will impact the financing rates. It will ultimately impact the commercial real estate market. It will ultimately impact the housing market. Everything is all really tied together. Job market, everything. And so I think it's key always to have a long-term focus. And when I'm advising clients, or whether I'm making an investment decision for myself as well as other partners, I'm always looking at, okay, what does the cash flow look like today, and what does it look like tomorrow, and what is the risk short term and long term, and then how do I value that risk? And so for me, I kind of boil it down to those very simple terms. Obviously, it becomes more complex as you start to put specific figures to it, but yeah, I think for me, it's like not getting caught up in the emotion and always focusing on the long term.
Gotcha. All right, so here's a big question as well. A lot of these questions are kind of generalized, but we love to ask this question, specifically myself, because I like to get really to know somebody on a deeper level. And so, what is your why? Why do you work so hard? What makes you get up so early in the mornings, every morning, and work your butt off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my why is 3 words: freedom, happiness, and significance. Those things are things that I want in my life, and I want to be able to share with others so they can achieve them in their own life. And so freedom, happiness, and significance for me can obviously mean something very different, than someone else. But for me, I think we were always taught growing up that you can go to school, do well in school, and go get a good job and work until you're 65 and retire and get a gold watch, and hopefully you get a pension and all these things. And really, that model is a little bit, in my opinion, very outdated. And so it was something that took me a while to really realize, and it's the primary reason as to why I got into this type of lifestyle and this type of business. And really, my business is my lifestyle. My lifestyle is my business. But freedom to me is like having the opportunity to have choice, to have options, and to choose the way I want to spend my day. What controllables do I want to control, and then what outcomes am I looking for? And I love to travel, I love to read, I love to write, I love to collaborate, I love to speak with other people like yourself, build relationships. Like that's the freedom that I look for. And then I think happiness comes from that in a lot of ways, and being able to contribute to other people. Like I love doing that. I love being a mentor. I love being mentored in different ways. Like I seek, I have a coach. I have people that I reach out to ask questions all the time. Like to me, I get happiness from progress and from growing, and from also being able to choose, what fun things I want to do. And significance is also just helping other people, and like I said, adding that long-term value. For me, that's my why. Those are my whys.
You nailed it right on the head. I think that's awesome, man. So next, it's just kind of a little of a fire round. We'll ask these questions. It's kind of first thing that comes to your mind. We've already touched on a couple of these things, but what book are you currently reading?
I just actually finishing up the Benjamin Franklin biography written by Walter Isaacson. Which is a phenomenal book, by the way. That guy is amazing. Yeah. I'm sorry, I know this is a really quick answer, but the amount of things that he did for our society is insane.
I'll have to look that up. Put
electricity. I mean, without Benjamin Franklin, the United States is not here. And I mean, so many things, but such a cool guy, and it was awesome to be able to learn about his personality, from 250 years ago, and what all the things that he did. And so anyway, that's an awesome one. But yeah, I try to read a book a week.
A book a week. Wow.
Yep.
That's impressive. That's awesome. So we kind of touched on it earlier. It sounds like you're a big Hal Elrod fan, the Miracle Morning. So how do you start your morning? we'll kind of skip that one. Let's go to what hobbies do you have?
Yeah, hobbies. For me, it's like I've got a German Shepherd. His name is Bruno. He'll be 7 in April actually,
Wow.
and so I mean he's definitely one of my top hobbies.
Yeah.
We're either going on a walk or throwing the frisbee or throwing the ball or whatever. So certainly a hobby of mine. I also love basketball and other sports, but certainly a big basketball fan. So love to watch the Kentucky Wildcats or NBA or whatever, and love that. For me also, I mean, reading is totally a hobby of mine. Like I'm so obsessed with reading because it's like the more you learn, it's just for me it's exciting. And spending time with family and friends. I'm an uncle. I have 2 nieces and a nephew, and
Congrats.
we have a lot of fun. And so spending time with them and just building relationships. I just love conversing with other intelligent people that are can help me learn something, or maybe I can help them learn something. So I don't know, my hobbies are kind of nerdy a lot of times. It's like personal development is like I'm just super passionate about it, so I'm always seeking something new, whether it's listening to a podcast, being on a podcast with you, whatever. I also write blogs, so yeah, I mean those are my hobbies. Also I like to stay in shape, so I love to go to the gym and get those endorphins flowing. But yeah, those are my hobbies.
That's awesome. So what is one thing that you wish you could have started learning sooner?
That's an interesting one. I think I would say probably mindfulness.
Okay.
I know it's a kind of a buzzword topic in today's society. A lot of people are kind of hitting on this a little bit, and I think at times maybe more surface level than it should be. And it's certainly a practice that takes a long time to really familiarize yourself with deeply. And I wish that I would have known growing up, especially like playing sports or just trying to do anything as a kid, the fact that your mind is really your enemy at times.
Oh, yeah.
And so being able to be aware of the forces that are trying to play against you, and then utilize that and direct it in ways that can be much more useful. So mindfulness is something that, like, whenever I have kids, like, I want them to be aware of this, like, from day one if I can. And so yeah, I think that would have been really, really helpful. But it's also like you can't regret like anything that's happened to you in your life, because it's all happened for a reason, I believe, and it's all led you up to a certain point. But certainly, I think mindfulness has been extremely useful for me, over the past several years that I've implemented it into my life.
That's awesome. So let's do this. What is something that you want people, our listeners, to know about you personally, or just about your business in general?
I think that, for me, I think that it's so important for people to dig deep within themselves and find out what is it that they're passionate about, what is it that they're talented at, and what is the life that they want to create. Because I think a lot of people, accept society's demands or expectations of them, and then they follow along with that. So, like, for me, like, that's my story. That's how I ended up where I am. And obviously I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But I think if people can ride along this journey with me and, be of a, sort of a supporting type of a role, as well as a just kind of an observer and just someone who's there, I think that's the key, is to really understand that, like, what, we don't have to really accept what society gives us. And we can create a life of our dreams if we're really serious about it, if we're consistent, if we develop the right habits, if we, remove the wrong habits from our life. And so I think, for me, like, that's the foundation of everything I do, and everything on top of that really comes back to that. And so I guess that would be the way that I would describe, how do you really understand, what do I do? That's what I would say.
Gotcha. Perfect. So for our listeners, if they want to know more about you or learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, my website is tylerchesser.com, and also you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @TheTylerChesser. and also Facebook as well. But those are the best ways. On my website, there's a subscribe page as well. So if you'd like to stay in touch there, you can read my blogs. Also, I share continuous updates there. And also, I offer, initially a free 30-minute coaching call, whether if you'd like to, learn more about personal development and what that can do to impact your life and maybe some specific strategies around that, as well as, if you'd like strategies or a complimentary coaching session regarding, real estate investing or otherwise. So that's on my website as well, tylerchester.com. So definitely look forward to connecting with your listeners.
Absolutely, and we'll put that in the notes at the end. But Tyler, we just wanted to really say thank you. We appreciate you coming out. This has been awesome for our listeners. This is Louisville Grind. This is our 3rd episode with Tyler Chester. He's in commercial real estate. He's an investor himself. He is a great guy. Get to know him. We'll put the notes at the end, and we are out.
Thank you.